and welcome to a new Zenfi tutorial. As you can tell by the title of today's video, we're going to be going over how you can automate the process of handling your quotes. We're going to build this flow in a way that you're able to manage each quote individually without having to wait for everyone to respond to make it even more seamless. So let's go ahead and get started. In this example, we're also going to be showing you how you can create a dashboard like the one seen on the screen right now, where we're able to see a backlog of all our quote requests, pending requests, as well as requests that have already been responded. We're going to be able to add an action button to these requests as well to be able to move on to the next part of the flow. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. This flow is going to be built up of two parts. We're going to have one flow that's going to send the requests and acquire the responses, and we're going to have another flow that's going to jump on as soon as they respond and continue with the rest of the steps. This is going to be started with an action button. So the first step to any Zenfi flow is to set up your trigger, which in Zenfi is the action that starts your flow. For this example, we're using the manual trigger, meaning someone has to go in and manually click start flow. After we do that, the first action or step that we have here is going to be to search the suppliers that we have listed. This way we're able to retrieve who we want to send these requests to. So this action is called search records. All you have to do is indicate the Zenfi table that you want to search, and then you can add different conditions to see which ones you want it to return. In this case, I've indicated that when the supplier name is not null, to return the record, meaning I want it to return all of the suppliers. You can obviously add more conditions if you want it to be more precise. So here's an example of our supplier list. We have their name, their ID, and their email. I highly suggest adding an ID to each supplier. That way they're able to be identified in a unique fashion. Here you're able to select which fields you want to return, and then after we're going to use our handy parallel for each loop. As I've mentioned previously, these are not very commonly used, but when they're used correctly, they can be very helpful. If you want to learn more about the differences between a for each loop and a parallel for each loop, I'll have a video linked down in the description to learn more about collections and loops. So here what we're going to do is loop through the suppliers that it found. So by clicking on the chain icon, which is our token picker, we're going to open up search suppliers and insert the data by clicking add token. This is going to allow us to be able to send the form to each one of the suppliers in tandem without having to wait for each one to reply before moving on to the next one. So to do that, we're going to use the request data action. This allows us to be able to build a form and send it to certain recipients. So to do that, you're going to build a form here. I've added a couple questions like what specific product they're interested in, what budget they have in mind, etc. So after you add all of your questions, you can add the recipients. Here I've indicated the email of each one of the suppliers. To do that, you're going to click on the token picker, open up the parallel for each, and I have their supplier email here. You can add reminders and expiries. The action by itself does come with an email on each one. If you want to send a notification email, reminder email, and expiry email, you can also do that. So this notify email comes by default when you add the request data. So all you have to do is set up your connection to Gmail, which is going to grant Zenfi permission to send emails on your behalf. To do that, you're going to click on the plus icon to create a new connection. After you click on authorize, you can edit the subject, you can add text in the body. It'll automatically add the URL to respond to the form. And before that, what I did was add the quote to my quote request table. So here I have created another Zenfi table where I'm going to store all of the information for each quote request that comes in. I'm going to be adding the supplier ID, their email, the status of the request. I can see if it's pending or it's been responded, and this information would be filled in once they have responded to the form. So here what I'm doing is using the create record action and just selecting which field belongs to which slot. So for example, here in status of request, it's a drop down since I added both options, and for the other ones I'm using the parallel for each. So I've opened up here, then I can select all of those tokens. After they've responded to the form, that means we're going to be stepping out of the request data, so we have to go after this dotted line, and I would want to look up the record in my quote request table. So using the lookup record action, what I'm going to do is add a condition when the supplier ID is equal to the supplier ID from the parallel for each loop. I wanted to return all of these different fields. And then what I'm going to do is update the status to responded and add all of the information that they filled in the form. So using the update record action, we're going to select the table. For the record ID, we're going to use the one from the previous action. And then we're able to select which ones we want to update. So these are the ones that come from the questions on the form. update requested also comes from request data. There's a submitted on feature. And then for the status, I've just selected responded. And that would be the end of this flow. So basically what it would do is it would send the form to each one of the suppliers and wait for them to respond, and once they do, it would update the table, but each one would be taken into account individually. That way we're able to continue with anyone who has responded. So going back to our dashboard, we're going to make a quick pause before moving on to our second flow. I have a widget here that is just for the responded quote request. If you look here, there's 3 dots in this table, however, it isn't available in the other ones. The reason why I've done this is because I want the requests that have been responded to be able to continue on to the next flow using an action button. So if we click on the 3 dots, we're able to move on to the next step in the flow. If we click here, we're able to run the next flow. And that flow would be this one. So this one starts with the table's invoke record trigger, which means it's going to start the flow when a record is invoked using an action button. All you have to do is indicate which Zenpy table it's going to be interacting with. And after you do that, you're going to be able to see all of the different fields. You can also request a form if you need to gather more information from someone after they submitted that information. That's also an option. Now, as the first step, what I want to do is retrieve the supplier's name, which is stored in the supplier table, which is not the same table as the one that we are currently working with. So I need to retrieve it from the other table. But the positive thing is, in the table that I am working with, I have a value called supplier record ID, so I'm easily able to access it. So all I have to do is use the get record action. Table is called suppliers, and I'm going to insert the supplier record ID field, which I had made in this table. And I'm going to return their name, since I already have access to their ID and their email. Then what I'm going to do is fill in a template, which is going to have all of the information from their request. I've gone ahead and made this Google Doc template. If you wish to replace information, you have to make sure you place it inside of 2 curly brackets, which is going to help indicate your placeholder, and Zenpy will be able to update that information with any of your tokens. So then what we're going to do is, using the generate document using template action, we're going to set up our connection to Google Drive. Here where it says file ID, we're going to select which file is going to be our template. So if you click on the Google Drive icon here, you can select your Google Doc from your Google Drive. And then where it says destination folder ID, this is where it's going to save the file. So you can select a folder by clicking on the Google Drive icon once again. And here where it says new document file name, this is going to be the name that's going to be assigned to the Google Doc. You also have the option to generate HTML and PDF. I'm going to enable generate PDF. And then down at the bottom, you're able to indicate which value belongs to which placeholder. It's very easy to do so. Just use a token picker and select each token. And then as a last step, I'm going to go ahead and notify the sales team by sending them the PDF that we just created. So using the send email Gmail action, you can update who's going to be the recipient, the sender, display name, subject, body, etc. And here in attachments, I'm going to add the PDF file. After this, you would be able to add additional steps in your process if needed, maybe sending it through DocuSign for signing, creating some calculations, or maybe emailing the PDF to someone else, requesting more data from a different department. So you're able to do that now. But the good thing is that you're able to continue with this quote even if the others haven't responded yet. So now what we're going to do is see this flow in action. So I'm going to go ahead and test run by starting a new instance. This is the dashboard before, and if we refresh, we should be able to see that now we have 5 pending requests instead of 3. And this is what the email that they would receive would look like. So if they click here, they're able to open up the form. So I'm going to go ahead and submit the form. And as we can see here, it has looked up the record and marked one as responded, but it's still running the flow since one of them is still pending. So if we go back to our dashboard, if we refresh this, now we have 4 that are pending and 1 that has been marked as responded, and now we can see each one of the fields here. And then for the next step, all I have to do is click on the 3 dots to open up the action button, send the notification to the sales team, and run the flow. And as we can see, an instance of this flow is currently running, and it has concluded. So let's open up our email. And then this would be the email they would receive with the final PDF. So if we open it up, we can see all of the information here as well. It's been replaced using our placeholders. Now to be able to create these dashboards, it's very simple. So all we're going to do is click on the plus icon here to add a new widget, and you're going to select grid. I've added the exact same table to each one of these. However, there's a condition set on 2 of the 3 tables. So after you do that, you're going to select the data source, which is basically the table that you want to show. Here you can select which columns you want to display. So this one, since it's a backlog of all the requests here, I haven't added any conditions. So it's very simple. All you have to do is select the columns and add a title. However, for the other 2, this one that is pending request, the thing that I added was a condition at the bottom where I have indicated to show the records where the status of the request is equal to pending. That way only those show up here, and same thing for the third one. So this one is responded quote request, so the only thing I changed is here it says the status of the request is equal to responded. And here I've also added my action button, so to be able to add an action button, all you have to do is click add action button and then select run flow, and you're going to be able to see which flows you're able to call using this specific table. And as you can see, it can be very simple to be able to automate the process of handling your quote requests. This is also going to increase efficiency because you're not going to have to wait around until everyone responds. You can get a head start on those who have already submitted their information. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to check out the link in the description to sign up for a free demo meeting with our specialized team where we can answer questions and go over your first flow to help you build your first process. Thank you so much for watching.